The UK's economy is stalling. GDP per capita is shrinking whilst European countries pull ahead. The new government had a chance to ride a wave of positivity and spark consumer confidence, but instead they've dropped a budget which feels like a stranglehold on growth. So what's the impact on spending, investing and even luxury markets like watches? How on earth can Britain compete? It was nothing but pessimistic. If we're not getting richer as people, we're not going to go out and spend on luxury. It's a budget of austerity over optimism. Prepare for impending Armageddon, splurging £10,000 on a Rolex when they are just sending nothing but messages of pessimism. I'm Vinny, a qualified accountant turned luxury watch dealer, and if you haven't subscribed as yet, please do that down below. For context then, here in the UK, back in July, the Labour government was elected into power following 14 years of Tory rule, and that government was elected with a stonking massive majority, and with that came optimism of change. Change was their slogan in the campaign, and we were persuaded into believing that change would mean prosperity, would mean economic growth, and would mean more money in our back pockets. And fundamentally, in any election, that is what most people vote for, and vote for as their number one priority. Am I going to be richer with whoever I vote into power? It can be said that in the last nearly 6 months now of Labour being in power, we haven't really seen those things materialise. So let's give some context to this debate then and compare the UK's current growth with the rest of Europe. And it can be said that we have once again, after a couple of months of growing around 0.7%, stagnated, as latest GDP figures indicate that the growth in the UK is only a mere 0.1%. That is compared with 0.4% in the Eurozone and 0.7% in the United States. Real GDP per capita in the UK, which is GDP per person in the United Kingdom, has decreased, which is in stark contrast to other European countries like France and Italy, where their growth has been driven by domestic spending and robust exports. So the first budget that was released by this new government basically outlines the next year, the first year of government and their economic strategy, and it was nothing but pessimistic, laden with tax rises on businesses and things that will undoubtedly impact consumer spending and disposable income. And it leaves me to pose a question: how on earth can Britain compete with countries like France and Italy when they are fostering an environment where businesses can flourish and invest, and we are just taxing businesses? For me, it's a budget of austerity over optimism. Yes, the word that the incoming Labour government didn't want to mention. It pretty much does amount to austerity. National insurance increases for employers, new VAT charges, and reduced allowances hit both businesses and households hard. These policies come as household spending, really a key driver of growth, remains very stagnant due to the persistent inflation that we've seen, all the way up to 11% in the United Kingdom, thanks to the mishaps of the last government, who were just totally inept in economic management. We, yes, need to clear up that situation and improve it, but when you're increasing taxes on businesses, all that you're doing is putting further back in businesses' thoughts ambition to invest in capital equipment like new machinery, for example. Those things just get deferred further on into the future. Less spending and expansion means the economy itself doesn't grow. Again, that would pose the question: if the government clearly wants growth and wants consumers to spend, then why are they asking us to tighten our belts at the same time? In my opinion, they've gone far too early with the tax rises. Why not defer these tax rises and instead offer a bunch of measures that encourages business spending? Let's zoom in then on consumer confidence and luxury spending. As we know, I am a luxury watch dealer, and therefore this is a big part of my life. Now, the current climate of spending in the UK, and it has been the case for the last couple of years, if you've watched what's been going on at a micro level in the luxury watch market, things have really slowed down. It's become very pessimistic and a lot more difficult to sell a luxury Rolex over £10,000, for example, than it was even 3 or 4 years ago. Now, we spoke last week about Trump's win and how that win may bring positivity and impact on the global economy and bring optimism in consumer spending with his pro-business policies as well. That's if he doesn't go ahead with the tariffs that have been hinted at in the build-up to his win. Yes, that could have an impact on the wider international economic environment and the luxury watch market, but we've got to really be paying close attention to, in the United Kingdom, if there just isn't that disposable income in people's back pockets, then the luxury watch market isn't going to grow. There are certain things that are good, that are impacting the watch market. You know, I mentioned Trump's new watches. That brings in attention to the industry and inevitably new future watch collectors. But generally, if we're not getting richer as people, we're not going to go out and spend on luxury, and that's regardless of the international economic environment. What's going on here in the UK absolutely matters specifically and primarily to the luxury watch market and whether it succeeds. If it doesn't succeed at a micro level in our own economy, if our own economy is rubbish, then the wider international environment doesn't matter. There's also big questions about Keir Starmer's government's communication. You know, the question would be, would Brits invest in or go out splurging £10,000 on a Rolex when they are just sending nothing but messages of pessimism and austerity? Yes, the budget might not be as bad as that austerity budget that we saw back in 2010 in the UK following the financial crisis. Of course it isn't, but it's all about the messaging here. You know, I remember, I think back to just a couple of months ago, there was still positivity surrounding the new government, and Keir Starmer's first big speech in the gardens of 10 Downing Street was really negative and warned that the budget is going to be cataclysmic and that we should tighten our belts and prepare for impending Armageddon. It was that negative, and I think the communications department in 10 Downing Street since Starmer's team took over has been really poor, really poor and lacking. They could have still had an environment where they're saying, look, just look on the bright side. Let's be positive. We're going to get growth. Things are going to get better. Let's look ahead at a brighter future for the United Kingdom. We're going to invest in this. We're going to improve our public services. Businesses are going to flourish. Go out, spend money, businesses. Invest in your new capital, plant and machinery because a new government is in town. Well, they didn't do that. None of the messaging since they came into office has been that positive. It's been nothing but pessimism. And the messaging is key because regardless of the reality of the economic context, if the messaging is positive, I guarantee you businesses, they believed Labour in the lead up to the election that they were going to spend and invest and encourage businesses. So if they came in and continued with promises verbally and perhaps threw a few bones at businesses, that would have created a more positive investing environment. There is this built-in negativity from financial institutions and an overall pessimism in the market, which is a cloud that is purely produced by the current government and their messaging. The UK has only seen a 0.3% rise in business investment for 2024, which falls way short of stimulating any productivity or innovation growth. Why not instead introduce incentives for investment, tax breaks for research and development, and green initiatives to try and stimulate that investment? Instead, they've just made investment in growth even harder for businesses. Now, Luke, no matter how it is spun or how you frame it, higher taxes, be it for businesses or for individuals, is always going to curtail spending. Economic uncertainty that arises from this will inevitably shift focus away from higher risk investments like luxury watches and alternative asset classes like cryptocurrency, for example, and more into things that are traditional investments or safer haven assets. Of course, there is always an upside if we take a much wider view and zoom out at the last 30, 40 years. Hard assets like a luxury watch, a Rolex, have always been a store of wealth, and in times of economic uncertainty, provide that physical store of wealth. But if we're talking about investing in watches for capital gain and appreciation as part of a wider portfolio, an alternative asset class, it is something which is much higher risk, and the current context and environment in the UK certainly I don't think allows for a luxury watch market to flourish as it did back in 2021 and 2022, because it all comes down, guys, to disposable income. And sadly, much to my dismay, Labour's new policies and their first budget of their premiership has really taken a hit to disposable income and only encouraged consumers to tighten their belts even further. Unless we have a boom that is led by the United States, a feel-good factor in the international environment, I don't think we're going to see that much change. Let me know, guys, what your thoughts are down in the comments below. Please go check out vinnyfrancis.com, and thanks for joining me on Vinny's Verdict. Take care.